We're back on the early edge and we're continuing with NFL futures. I like this one. I like looking at the win totals this early, see if we can find an edge. And let's just take a look at the odds boards. We're going to start with the AFC. We're going to have a couple of picks from a win total standpoint in the AFC and then in the NFC. Looking at the Chiefs, 11 and a half, Mike McClure's team, and the Ravens, not far behind, same total, but plus money, plus 115. Some interesting teams down the line. The Chargers with Harbaugh, of course. The Browns, the Colts, I think, are an interesting team as well, but who cares what I think? Let's hear what the stars of the show think. And prop stars, I am starting with you. Let's hear your first AFC win total.
Yeah, see, I'm going to play a little bit of a dangerous game here, and I'm going to fade Mike Tomlin's Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm going under 8.5 wins. Done this in the past, and it hasn't exactly worked out for me. But I'm just looking at this Pittsburgh roster. I just think they're by far the least talented roster in their division, who I might add is a very competitive division when we're looking at the Cincinnati Bengals, who I expect to bounce back from, the Cleveland Browns, who won 10-plus games last season, and we know how good the Baltimore Ravens are. Just, again, offensively, I like what the Steelers did in the draft, but just we're looking at George Pickens as their number one wide receiver. He has never been in a high-volume role. They lose Deontay Johnson. They add Russell Wilson at quarterback, who's not inspiring a lot of confidence. Same goes for Arthur Smith, their new offensive coordinator. I just do not see it with this Pittsburgh Steelers team. If Mike Tomlin can turn this team into 9 wins, I will be very, very impressed. I think he's going to have a hard time in such a competitive division. I'm going under 8.5 wins for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Prop stars on social media for SportsLine. I put out this very same pick about, again, a month ago, and I got absolutely lit up by everybody who saw the under because of the Pittsburgh Steelers historically. But now you're on it. So take that, social media. All right, RJ White, we've got this team in the AFC East that historically has been very good, but right here, right now, not so much. Talk to us about your win total pick in the AFC.
One of the two lowest numbers on the board. I'm taking the Broncos under 5.5 at plus odds, plus 120 where I saw it. You just talked about Russell Wilson. He takes a lot of heat, but I don't think he was the problem last year. I thought he was fine. I cannot see Bo Nix being better in his rookie year when the entire world, except for probably Nix himself and a couple people in Denver, thought he should have been a day 2 pick. So I just don't see this being a successful offense. And the defense was actually worse than the offense last year. And Sean Payton didn't really make changes to the coaching staff. It seems like the same old same here. You could see Patrick Surtain be dealt at some point. There was whispers that might happen for them to go up to get a quarterback during the draft. Not much talent added in the draft or free agency. They did not have a second-round pick, and they used their first pick to reach on a quarterback. I think there's a real chance they're picking first next year. So I like getting plus odds at under 5.5 in a tough division.
All right. And by the way, that AFC East team, RJ White's going to talk about that team in just a second. But Mike McClure, speaking of, you are targeting the Bills, over or under here?
I'm going under on the Bills here, Sia. And this is always difficult because this is a team that has the biggest range of outcomes. If they get in with a wild card spot, they are live to win the Super Bowl. If they don't, they aren't. So when I look at this setup, though, I do think they're going to play a little different football this year. I think they are going to run a little more. They're going to try and play better defense. But I think the schedule is not kind to them, especially with someone like Josh Allen at the helm, who I actually think is really at risk for injury the way he plays. But when I look at this schedule here, you've got the Jets team that's drastically improved when you've got a quarterback situation like Aaron Rodgers. We know how good they are defensively. They've got to play them twice. They play the Miami Dolphins twice. But in the non-division schedule, they also play the 49ers, the Chiefs, the Ravens, the Texans, and the Los Angeles Rams on the road in LA. I think that is a tough schedule here. I think they're going to win 10 games. They may or may not sneak into that wild card spot, but I am fading the 11th win for Josh Allen and the Bills.
Yeah, I like that play as well. Prop stars, I go back to you for your second AFC win total. This one's really interesting because I don't know if you heard me, but on the front end of this segment, I said, hey, the Indianapolis Colts are really interesting. And side note, Anthony Richardson for MVP, also really interesting when you look at the odds. But we're not talking about MVP right now. We're talking about win totals. Talk to us about the Texans.
You talked about getting into some trouble on social media, Sia. This one might do the same for me, but I'm fading the Texans and going under 9.5 wins for last year's Cinderella story. The Texans' win total last season was 4.5. Now it's 9.5. Yes, CJ Stroud had a phenomenal rookie season, but he's going to very likely, in my opinion, to have somewhat of a sophomore regression. I don't know if I'm going to call it a slump, but I think it's going to be very hard to replicate the amount of success he had. And when was the last time this Texans team had lofty expectations where they were the division favorite and thought to win 10 plus games? I don't know if that's ever happened in the history of this franchise. I also look around at the division. I think the division got a little bit better. I think if we look at even the team like the Titans, who are projected to finish fourth, if we're looking at the bottom teams in each division, they have the highest projected win total, I believe, of any team that's projected to finish fourth. So I think this division is a little bit underrated right now. I think they're primed for a letdown with such lofty expectations after the fantastic year where they crept up on everybody. They're going to have a big target and bullseye on their back this season. I also think the addition of Stephon Diggs was a little bit overrated as well. I don't think he'll have nearly the impact that some people are anticipating. So I'm going to fade the Texans here, who I believe are a natural regression candidate under 9.5 wins.
Well, I have an under that's probably a little easier to stomach. I took one of the lowest two teams in the AFC odds. I'm taking the other one under too. So give me both of them. I'm taking the Patriots under 4.5 at plus 135. I think it's worth also playing under 5.5 at around minus 140, which you can find if you have that available. They spent their top pick on a talented quarterback, but the roster around him is pretty grim. And we saw that what that meant for Carolina last year, meant a 1-win season. And this seems like a similar situation to me. No reliable pass catchers, questions at tackle, facing the second toughest schedule in the league per some metrics, and they have a new coach. But this franchise is going to be under Bill Belichick's shadow for a while, I think, and it's going to loom large. And this really feels to me like a 5-win team at best. So I like getting very positive plus odds at under 4.5 to take the Patriots here. Maybe they're in contention for the number 1 pick with Denver all season.
And I'm looking at the Tennessee Titans. As Alex mentioned, I want to fade the Texans as well. And if we want to add to some of the social media hot takes, I think the Titans might have the best wide receiver room in the division. I think that they have improved drastically with this coaching staff. I think the offensive line got obviously a lot better with the draft, but the number at 6.5 at plus 115 here, I think 7 wins, while will put you nowhere near the playoffs in the AFC, is very obtainable for this team. I think the Jacksonville Jaguars are not a good team. I think the Houston Texans are a team that drastically overperformed. So give me the Titans, loving their schedule that I've seen. I think they grab a 7th win before it's all said and done.